thank you all so much. I'm sure many of you have been here before, but thank you all so much for coming out tonight and being here for this panel. We're really excited. This is something that I've been talking about doing for well over a year now with our writing club, and so I'm really glad to see it come to fruition. I want to first off just extend my deepest heartfelt thank you to each and every single one of the authors who took the time on a Friday night to come out and speak to you all about publishing. So thank you guys so much. Please give them a round of applause. My name is Alyssa. I'm going to be asking the questions here, but there is going to be time for you guys to also ask questions at the end. So if you're thinking of things throughout, just save them for the very end. But we're going to get started by just going down the row. I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your book or books, and then which publishing route you went. And like 2 minutes or less if you can. We'll start with you, Shanine.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Shanine Muldrow, New Jersey native, in Charlotte here the last 8 years. My brother and I created a children's book series called Sawyer Kid Lawyer. We have 2 books out right now, Teacher vs. Nap Time and Playground Debate. We're working on a 3rd. And we went with Journal Joy Publishing, which is in Georgia.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Rachel A. Greco. I grew up in Texas with horses. No, I'm just kidding. I wish. We actually had cars. Everyone's like, "Did you ride horses to school?" I was like, "I wish." No, I lived in a city. And I write fantasy mostly of broken characters and beautiful endings. And my books are The Gifted Dragons Duology, which is a young adult fantasy series.
And what
Sorry.
That's our campus.
I went with a hybrid company called Atmosphere Press.
My name is Candace Blanks. I have been living in Charlotte for the last 8 years as well. I am the author and illustrator of this children's book called Don't You Remember Your Fairy Tales? And also this devotional called Growing Into, God Bless Those 20-somethings. And I took the publishing route through Barnes & Noble.
Hi everyone, my name is Malika Stevely, and I'm from California, but I've been here in Charlotte since 2011, so this is home for me now. This traffic is not as bad as California, so you got your blessings. I am a historical fiction author. My book is Song of Redemption, which is inspired by true events, and I went the self-publishing route for this.
Hi, I'm Marissa. I also went the self-publishing route, and I am in the process of also going traditional as well, so I'll talk about both of those paths today. I've been living in Charlotte for 5 years, and I'm originally from Toronto.
What kind of
And
books
this is
do you
Between
have?
Rainbows and Beating Waves, my most recent book. I have a whole cozy-ish, sapphic, romantasy collection.
As you can see, we've got a great panel of a lot of different folks writing lots of different types of books and going through different publishing routes. So I'm really excited to lean on and learn all of their expertise. So the first thing I want to ask you all and have you talk about is why you chose your particular publishing route. And now that it has been published that way, if you would still do that again, if you felt like it was the right move for your book. We'll go back to you, Shanine.
No worries. So I started out attempting to self-publish, but I had a day job that was very demanding, and I just couldn't get it where I needed it to go, and that's when I started looking for different publishers. I happened to know the owner of Journal Joy. I went to high school with her, so I reconnected with her, told her what her and my brother were doing, and so we decided to go with that company, and so far it's been a good experience. What I would say is it's hard working with family, one. It's harder working for people you also know. So the first book, little rocky. Second book, it got easier. Now that we're working on the 3rd book, like we're kind of hitting our stride finally. And I've been having a good experience so far.
Yes, I chose Atmosphere Press because the dream was and still is to do traditionally published. However, with these books, it was there wasn't as much interest, and it was taking forever. as is the case for traditionally published books. And so I was getting these emails from Writer's Digest, and they had mentioned, or I'd heard about hybrid publishing from a writing conference. So I was interested about it. I was like, oh, that sounds like the best of both worlds. You don't have to find your own designer or your own editor and all these things and figure it all yourself in the printer and distributor. Someone does it for you, but yet you also still have control, and you get to keep, at least with them, you get to keep all your own royalties. I was like, that sounds great. But, well, not but. And so I saw an email about that, and they had like a submission period. So I did submit to them. And it worked out really well, especially for my first books, because I was learning a lot. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not sure I still do. But it was a great experience and a great first step into publishing. I probably am not going to do it for my next book because it is just so expensive, and you have to have a lot of money up front, which I had at the time, but not as much now. So, but it was a great experience. The people I worked with were great as well.
So I went through Barnes & Noble Publishing, which is essentially self-publishing, but of course with one of the big box companies. I chose them because I was like, if I go through them, I'll be able to ease my way into their stores and get some notoriety through that. If I had to do it again, I would absolutely do it again, because throughout that process, you choose everything that goes into your books, the way it looks, the way it comes out, the paper count, whatever. So I was really, I guess, pressed to be in control of all of those things, because I am an artist outside of this, and I work in marketing. So I was like, I want my product to look a certain way, to be what I want it to be. So that's why I chose Barnes & Noble.
Worth noting, both children's authors who are on this panel tonight also illustrated their books, which I think is astounding. So not only did they write it, they also both illustrated. I don't think you need
Well,
to
Sheldon illustrated.
Sorry. That's right.
But
I do apologize.
It's in the blood.
It's in the book, basically her. Same difference. Malika.
Yeah, so I went the self-publishing route because I was noticing the shift when it came to books like mine, historically, and there were like a number of challenges that I faced. I wanted to go traditional originally, but the feedback that I kept getting was, this, from some agents and some publishers, they were saying, this fits under critical race theory. And we're not necessarily wanting those types of books. Love your book, but it's not for us. And so after getting that so many times, I started talking to some other authors, and they were saying, you might want to consider either hybrid or self-publishing. And, the more I thought about it, since this is inspired by true events, I definitely did not want to compromise any editors or the publishing company changing anything about the story, particularly characters and things like that. So since it was so deeply personal, I just decided, okay, well, I'm going to do it. I'm also in the communications and marketing realm, and so I said, hey, there's some things that I can do for myself. There's others where I'm going to have to hire some other folks, and so that's what I went the route that I did. I probably, for the next book, I'm not sure yet if I want to do, I'm not sure which route I want to go specifically, but it's still in the works.
Maybe this panel will help you decide.
So I self-published my first book 3 years ago. I actually don't have it with me today. It was part of a series that I ended up unpublishing with hopes of republishing it in a different genre and age group. But with the ones that I still have self-published, I have really loved the process. I always wanted my own business, and I wanted to be able to control the title, what was in it. I didn't want anyone messing with my characters or the plot lines, and when I was early into my publishing journey and I didn't really know much about either traditional publishing or self-publishing, I just kept hearing about how much control, publishers have over your works, and I wasn't able to compromise. So I wanted to do it myself. And it has been really great for me. I've learned so much about both paths in the past few years, and I've been doing it full-time for the past 2 years, and in that time I've realized that I am actually writing less than I was when I had a full-time job, because I'm doing so much of the business side of things and not so much the creative side of things. And so recently I decided I was also wanting to go down the traditional path. So the other week I got a literary agent, and so that's all very new towards the steps of
Very cool.
so that has been very exciting and lots going on with that. And so that is for foreign rights for my current series and keeping the rights US for these, and then going back to that first series that I unpublished, those are going to hopefully be republished traditionally.
I'm interested to hear what each of you face as challenges in your particular publishing route, because I think no matter what publishing route you go, you're bound to face a challenge regardless. There's pros and cons to all of them. So with each of you, what was a challenge that you faced as you were going through publishing your books?
Timing. So because the manuscripts were done, I didn't think the drawings would take that long, or how to, I'm not even showing the books, to digitalize the hand sketches. So my brother hand sketches everything. We then brought it over to the publisher. The publisher says, look, that's amazing and great. We now need to color it. We had to think through different Pantone colors. And they got really in the weeds that I did not realize we needed to talk about. And also I thought my brother would handle such details, being that he created the characters and helped to bring the vision to life. So I was under the impression we can do this in 6 months. It ended up taking almost 2 years to do the first book, which was Teacherverse Downtime. But what it taught me is now I know how to make my brother move faster, and now that we have the color tones down, we can make the other ones move a lot quicker. But I really underestimated that time frame, and what that translates into is money. Like, who was talking about, was it you that was talking about when you publish you need a lot of money?
Yeah.
Like, whoa. Yeah, it was eye-opening for that.
Would you be okay with sharing that amount?
Oh yeah, I don't mind sharing because we have to help one another. So we were quoted initially to bring this book to life $2,500. I spent $62 because of timing and my lovely older brother. So he owes me some money. Right.
Yeah, I feel like during the process itself, there weren't any major hiccups or challenges. Again, I didn't really know what to expect. It was a little tricky when they were like, when do you want to publish? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's just, they're very much, even though it's a hybrid publishing company, this group, it's like run by authors, like they've been published before, so they know what it's like, and I think they came from traditionally published. So they very much give you the control, which is great. You have the final say, but part of that is like sometimes felt a little too much. I'm like, I don't know. And then I didn't realize that like the graphic designer did a fabulous job. Like, I'm amazed by the cover. But I didn't realize like they weren't, and this is true for a lot of like graphic designers, but I didn't realize they weren't gonna like read it, or like I had just had to come up with a lot of it myself, like what I wanted on the cover, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not an artist, I wish I was, but I guess there were some things that I had to just makeup. I don't know.
You feel like there wasn't anyone giving you direction.
Right, there's like less direction.
Yeah.
But I mean, the editor did give me direction on my story, which was great, and like it was great information, so I do appreciate that. And there's a little bit of a challenge now with the hybrid publishing is that I don't have as much control over the books on like Amazon and stuff. Like I can't just control the pricing myself. I have to like go through them, and if I want to order the books, I go through them, and so it's just a little tricky with that part that I'm learning. But yeah.
And would you be comfortable sharing how much it costs upfront for you to publish your book?
I'm so bad with numbers. It was several thousand, yeah, for each book. Probably like 2,000 maybe. I don't. That's just a rough ballpark number.
So my experience was actually pretty smooth. One, because I am a graphic artist and an artist, so the hardest thing, see, good things come out of this. So for me, it was just, I would get in my head a lot about what people would want or what I wanted things to look like, so that held me up in the process. This first book took 4 years to put together. It's comprised of journal entries, so on and so forth, so collecting all of my writings and making sure that it was cohesive. And it made sense to go in each chapter. For this book, it took 2 years. Mind you, I was working during the time, so please don't get intimidated by the timelines. But it took 2 months to do the illustrations, and then of course you have to go back and make sure that all of them look the same. You don't want your character to look one way and then look different on another page. So that part was more tedious, I would say, but as far as actually publishing it and getting it out there into the atmosphere, that wasn't hard, because with my marketing background, I was able to say, hey, 2 months before I actually publish this, let me start putting this out to the bookstores, let me start connecting with different people to say, hey, I have a book coming out. And the cool thing about Barnes & Noble, you can do the pre-order / pre-sale portion. So during that time while you're, drumming up business or whatever the case is, you're able to essentially have a place to send people. So mine hasn't been as tedious. The only thing, like these ladies said, is the money part. So to print, to give you an idea, this book originally was like $3 to print. I think now it's gone up a little bit, of course, because of materials and everything's going on. So now I think it's around $5 to print, and this book was around $10 to print.
I didn't have too many challenges, but one I would say was understanding the whole copyright aspect, not just for a physical book, but also for the audiobook. Because the audio, I mean, that's a completely different world. Which, there was a learning curve when it came to, audiobooks and all of that. But when it came to the legality of it all, just trying to understand all of that, and then how, now that we have AI floating around, how does that affect, your personal property? I'm sorry, your intellectual property. How does it affect, sound bites and things like that? So I guess that was somewhat of a challenge, just understanding just the legality behind it and the whole copyright.
We're going to come back to self-published audiobooks, because I didn't even think about that being a thing. So I would like to ask more about that. But first, Marissa.
So when I first published my first book a few years ago, and I have some in the back actually, I can bring them out later if you guys want to see this, but I did not know what I was doing, and I had no community, and I think that was my biggest mistake. I wish that I had gotten on social media and started meeting other authors before I published, because now having a community and asking, author friends questions and bouncing ideas off of people and learning from their mistakes, it has changed the game for me. But back then, I spent a lot of money on things that I just did not need to spend money on. So the first book, I ended up spending over $10,000 on it. And then every book after that, I've been able to spend an appropriate amount for the editor and the cover artist, and I've really streamlined my process to make it more cost effective without affecting the quality of it. And so now for my cozier collection, I think I've spent anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000. So big difference there. That's definitely my biggest mistake and struggle in the beginning is just not having anyone in the industry to lean on, and there was only so much research I could do online. I felt like a lot of the things that I was seeing for independent publishing was either outdated or it was kind of skewed because it was from a perspective of traditional versus indie and indie being inferior, and so there was just not the best information out there. So that's why I love things like this, to spread information and help people out in the beginning so they can avoid making a lot of mistakes.
Do you mind expanding on what some of the things you spent money on that weren't worth it for
Yeah.
you?
So I have mixed feelings about the editing situation because she inspired me a lot and gave me a lot of confidence to actually get my book out there. But I wouldn't recommend finding editors on Fiverr, and I wish I knew that. A big mistake is the Fiverr app suggests that you also tip the creators. And so I tipped my first editor 20%, which is not something that you do. So that was an additional cost that did not need to happen. I also, the big portion, I think $3,500 of that went to editing. And honestly, it was so long ago now, I feel like I blacked it all out. I don't know what I did with the other $1,000, but it was not productive. Art as well. For the first two books, I went with a very, well-known, expensive cover designer, and I felt like they were worth it. They were beautiful, and sometimes you have to shell out for really great art, and I'm totally fine with that. But now I just do my covers a little bit differently to save money.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because as a book reader and also as someone who curates books for the store, we all judge books by their covers, and I think you can very clearly tell when someone has self-published a book and hasn't put the thought into the art. And part of the reason that I curated this specific group of authors is because from hybrid to self-published to all of it, the art on the cover looks beautiful to where I don't think you could really tell. It all looks pretty traditionally published to me. And I think that's just an important thing that some authors don't prioritize, but there is definitely prioritizing it too much. There's walking that line, which is important. What was a positive experience about your specific publishing route?
Reconnecting with friends.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, that was positive. Clearly, we're different as adults, but it was nice reconnecting with someone I lost contact with for like 10 years, and that was nice. Also, I would say, even though it's not the publisher, it has been a great experience working closely with Sheldon. So,
Even when he takes too long.
It's almost like a legacy project. Like it's rare to say you can work with family and you have like a product to show for it. So that's been a good experience for us.
Yeah, I really did enjoy working with the team, and they were all very friendly, and they wanted to see it succeed. I mean, not as much probably as like traditionally, because they had already got their money from me. So they weren't like, we gotta sell this one. But you know, you could still see they had high quality, they were professionals. They treated me like a, you know, like a professional, like a human being. So that was great. Because part of me is like self-publishing, I'm a little nervous about it because I'm like, oh, it's just me, it's all on me. I mean, you do like find designers and you do find editors and all that, but still it's like, you're the one pushing it. So I did like that team aspect from the hybrid publishing company. And that was the main thing for sure. Yeah, and they actually, this company, I don't know if they still do this, but they provide like a list of independent bookstores that you could like contact and for things like this, I guess, and get to know them. So that was very helpful as like a nobody author coming into it. It was just like a nice, easy way to step into the marketing sphere. So that was really nice.
For me, I think the biggest positive was being able to put my foot in the door at the big box, like bookstores. Of course, you're gonna fight you don't have to fight as hard if your book is on the website, right? So for me, that was like a very good positive because I have been able to do events with Barnes & Noble, and of course a lot of people traffic that just to go to Starbucks. So the more people that get eyes on you, the more, you know, chances that you have to sell your book and be able to build a community. So that was one of the positives that came out of it. And yeah, like doing events like this, being able to connect with everybody in here, including Alyssa, who I just randomly walked in here and was like, hey, I have a book. She was like, hey, I have a store.
I was like, I sell those. Yeah, it's the whole world.
And so just being able to do and connect with people has been the best part of the publishing journey thus far.
I would say the most positive experience has been just building a community of authors, writers, editors, I mean, you name it. My background had been mostly like in journalism and communications and whatnot, you know, and so I'd been writing for quite some time, but I had never really dove into the whole literary space. So just knowing that there's so many book lovers out there, and just the ability to connect with them through literary events, and that was the other thing. I didn't know there were so many literary events, and so I think the hardest part is just choosing which ones to go to throughout the year. But yeah, just building a community and really keeping those connections. So at every event that I've been at, I've kept these connections with other people, and it's just been fantastic. I see somebody in the audience.
So a big pro for me through all of this was the community as well. That was the first thing that came to my head, but since it's been touched on so much, I'll talk about the events and getting to meet different readers and authors. That has been just so wonderful to be able to meet all sorts of different people and how they can come together over, you know, one story. And especially with this collection, because it is sapphic, there's been a lot of people who have reached out to me, just so thankful for more representation, because it can be lacking in the fantasy space, and this one specifically is Norse mythology. I had never seen a Norse mythology book that was sapphic, and so a lot of people were really excited about that, and I just love to be able to give more options to people when there might not have been that already. And then another huge thing is the getting to work with artists from all around the world has been really fun, and getting to see your and kind of getting to see what you've been imagining in your head come to life. That has been so great, and getting to also support, either narrators, digital artists, whatever the case may be, all coming together in a community of people who really love stories and kind of uplifting each other. So there's been so many wonderful things. I feel like I could touch on it for a while, but
I did not send you guys this question earlier, so I'm sorry I'm throwing you a curveball. It's actually only for the self-published folks. I'm interested to hear if you feel like you have to fight or battle misconceptions about your book as self-published authors, and what that's like.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm so glad you asked that, because I was gonna mention that too. Yeah, I just think that self-published authors get a bad rap. There's so many who were traditionally published, but then wanted to go the self-published route. And so everybody has like a different route or story, but it seems like when either bookstores or even literary contests, when they hear that you are self-published, they're just like, no, we prefer those who are traditionally published, because there's that stigma. So that's a little bit frustrating, and I feel like that's why there's so much more pressure to have the editing perfect, or have the cover perfect, or have like the interior layout perfect, because there's all of these stereotypes against those who are self-published.
I would definitely second that. Even though I publish through Barnes & Noble, like I said, it's still self-publishing. And so, again, you do hear a lot more no's than you hear yes. And that's up to you to keep pushing through that until you get your yes. I can't tell you how many different independent bookstores that I'm like, hey, do y'all have openings to carry my book? And they're like, no. Or they have this long drawn out submission process that, we'll get back to you in 2 years. So, and it's very discouraging, of course, on one front, but it's also empowering, especially once you start getting those yeses. My first book, I was like, oh man, like I just want to get it out there. So I got it out there, and I did my own events, which was pretty cool. Libraries, but then, throughout North Carolina, they were very receptive. I thought I would have a better platform to be able to speak at churches and do workshops with their young adults and all that stuff, with that first book being a devotional. However, it was not as easy as I thought. So if you have tough skin, which you need to have in this business, right?
I think some of the toughest people are authors.
Yeah.
Not only are you hearing rejections from publishers and maybe stores, but also I know that reviews can be tough and can be scathing at times online, which is a good reminder, don't tag authors in reviews. Reviews are for other readers, not the authors. Like, let them live their lives, okay? They don't need to know your thoughts. They're just glad you read the book.
It's a great review.
Unless it's great. If it's a 5-star, anything less than 5 stars, so tag them. There we go. That's good. They'll seek it out if they need to see it. For our hybrid and our indie published authors, do you feel like you have misconceptions that you have to fight against because you aren't traditionally published, or do you feel like it's less than an indie experience?
For sure. Like, I feel like for hybrid, I'm like, where do I fit? It's like this awkward in between. And there was a writing competition or contest, and I was like, I don't remember. I think it was like for self-published, or there's a lot of self-published writing contests, which is great. But I'm like, is that me? Like, I usually just ignore them because I'm like, I don't think mine count. I guess I could contact them and be like, is this count? So there is that frustration. because they don't have like contests just for hybrid books, or if they do, maybe they do, and I just haven't found them. Maybe they're smaller. So that is a challenge, and but I mean, I just feel like you're fighting, like some of what y'all were saying, you're fighting all the time. Like, you know, there's just so much competition. And so you're just constantly having to put your book out there, or, you know, contact people like this wonderful bookstore, or libraries, you know, like you just are constantly having to put yourself out there for anything, it seems like, all these types of publishing.
I don't have much to add, but I will say larger publishing firms obviously monopolize what you can do. So when you come from a smaller company or an indie publishing house, I do hear the rejections too. Oh, we don't know that publishing house, we can't carry your book. Have you thought about going to a different house? Of course I've thought about it, but they haven't said yes yet. But they shall say yes one day, right? But manifest it, right? And I also want to say thankful for Alyssa, because you do find amazing bookstores like this that say, oh, of course we will carry your book and bring it like this.
No, it's an honor to work with local authors and self-published authors, indie authors. I think that's why I am very committed to having our local author section, having our local author children's section, and highlighting these voices. There are an incredible amount of local authors that have been published in Charlotte. I get emails multiple every day of people asking to get into the store. And it's really hard from my perspective to know who to bring in and who not. And we're full, so we're on a wait list. We don't want to kick anybody out, and so like it's a struggle. I just want to give everyone the space, so it's hard. But I'm very grateful to get to work alongside all of you. So thank you. All right, Ebony, what time do we have? Do you mind?
It is 8:15.
Perfect. Oh, wow. I couldn't have timed this better if I tried. We're going to open it up to audience questions now for these last 15 minutes. And then the last half hour is really just mixing, mingling, networking. So if you want to talk to someone specific, you can absolutely do that. But does anybody have a question for the panel as a whole, or any of the authors on the panel? Yes.
I got a couple, but first, I think you mentioned something about an agent. Have any of you other have anything to do with literary agents, and do you recommend it? I've done a couple of things with, I have an editor looking at a book now, but I've been on the manuscript wish list before.
Yeah,
All right. I thought, someone thought I seen you on there. Not that I really, I just thought I remember seeing it, but so that was my question. Do you really recommend getting an agent, or would it be a lot easier? Because I haven't spent too much, but my editor she was 500, but she's local. Like she works here, and I found her just by chance. But I've been because I'm thinking the self-publishing route too. So I just wanted to think should I get the agent? Because a lot of people are interested in the book and ready for me to put it out. But so I just wanted to see if you feel like the agent is good, or did y'all use an agent, or just the publishing route? Like the agent is what I'm really trying to hear about.
It depends on what your goals are. So I heard you say you want to go the self-publishing route, but if it's something where you would like to have like a film adaptation of your book, or something along those lines later on, or if you would like to get your foot in the door with, some of the, top bookstores and things like that, then, I would say yes. But you would have to see exactly what it is that they can do for you, because there's some things that you will have to do for yourself also. So, like speaking engagements and things like that, they won't necessarily provide that for you. And then there's some who might, and then there's publicists and things like that. So I would just think about what your overall goals are, and where you want to be and how far you want to take books.
I mean, I do have it's a lot going on with it. But one other thing that I have going on with it is that I'm on a Thomas name. So that is, I basically will be a spokesperson for the book, but they won't know it's me. I mean, y'all know it's me, but you know what I'm saying?
We won't tell.
But that's my goal, though, the people not to really know it's me because of the nature.
Right.
When it comes to the agent, I've only had one for 2 weeks, but the reason why I went with one, and actually I it's kind of coming from two ends, because for my series, I want to publish that across all formats traditionally, so not just internationally, not just for audiobook, but across the board. And that's different from what I'm doing with my Love X Magic collection, because I will retain the rights in North America for this collection, so I can continue to go to book fairs and book conventions and be able to sell my books and have my TikTok shop and do all the things that I'm doing now, and I want the freedom to be able to do that. But the reason why I want to be agent is because I was not going to touch foreign rights myself or try to do it independently. So she is working on getting this collection published in other countries, whether it's in English in the UK or in a different language. And so that's really helpful for that reason. And if audiobooks is something that you want to do, I already have audiobooks for these ones, but through a different publisher that I did without the agent. But I will say it is really hard to sometimes get audiobooks or do translations or do any of these things without an agent. For instance, when I published, the day that I published my very first book, Penguin Random House of Portugal reached out to me and requested to talk to my agent because they wanted to do a translation of the book. I didn't have an agent, so I was like, I got this. Like, I've been published as of today. I can navigate this by myself. It's fine. I could not navigate it myself. I definitely needed an agent, and especially if you're going to try to publish with a top 5 publishing agency, they don't want to talk to the author, they want to talk to an agent. And so it can be really helpful whether you are independent and want to stay independent, say, with paperbacks, but only want to, traditionally publish audiobooks or whatever kind of you want to do. There's some agencies that now only publish ebooks. Like, it really depends on your plan, but I think it's really helpful to have an agent, whether you're doing independent or traditional.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
I think mine's pretty basic, maybe, but did you all think you were going to write books? Or, like, was it always a dream? Was it just like, hey, I'm just going to go for it? Or how did that go?
I have always enjoyed writing, and in a former life of mine, I was a legal assistant, and I started writing about the experiences in that law office. Then COVID hit, and I was like, hey, Sheldon, I want you to read this. And we're going to dust this off. We're going to make this a whole novel. He was like, you cannot publish that.
Leave it to Big Brother.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, girl.
And I was like, I'll just change the names. I'll make this like this. No one will know who they are, and I'm in a different state, right? Like, and then he said, you know what, Shameen, I think you should approach this differently. You did a lot of things when you were younger that were very lawyer-ish. And why don't we do a different spin on this? So it was really through my brother this came about, from a manuscript I wrote like 12 years ago. Yeah. But always my love.
For me,
I always liked reading, and so for me the natural, and I had a crazy wild imagination, and so I always enjoyed I enjoyed writing too since I was a kid. In fact, I started writing stories. Like I remember I wrote a story about this girl's like turned into an ant, and it's like it doesn't really make sense. And I stopped, eventually I got tired of it or something, because I was like 8, So I always enjoyed stories, and they just kept getting longer and longer, as I got older. And then I finally, I finished writing a story in like high school, maybe before college, about mermaids, but it was really unpublishable. Like typically your first book, you just like hide it in the basement or like the lowest drawer, because it would take too much work to get it publishable. So we got there in the end, but yeah, it's always been a dream. And I wish I had known how much work it was back then, and like more of the business aspect for sure. Like if I had known how much business savvy you have to be, and the marketing aspect and all of that, because in my head I was like, oh, you just write stories and then you give it to someone and they publish it, because that was how it used to be back in the good old days. But like Jane Austen now. But I would have definitely like taken some classes in college, or more of those kinds of classes to help brush up. So I wish I had known that back in the day. But
Now it's your turn.
My time to shine. Nah, for me, I fell into it. I used to, at the beginning of every year, I used to send my friends like a little declaration for the year, right? And they were like, hey, you should write a book. You should like take your journal writings and just write a book. And so I was like, hey, I should write a book. But after publishing this children's book, I was going back looking for old pictures of me as a kid, right? And I found a Polaroid when I was in pre-K, and I was a classroom author, so I guess I was destined for it.
Yeah, I totally wanted to write when I was a kid, and I started writing poetry, and it wasn't until some teachers just pulled me aside and said, you need to keep this up, and I ended up writing my first novel when I was 15, and I decided, okay, I'm going to publish this, and tried to go the traditional route initially with agents and whatnot, kept getting rejected, and my mom's friend, she has had 2 friends who worked for Marvel before Marvel was Marvel. And one of them said, well, here's what we'll do. We'll write you a letter, and we're going to pretty much like represent you. And you just take this to a publishing company, and then you write your cover letter and blah, blah, blah. Can't do that now, but I was so scared to do that. I was so scared to go that route, because I felt, oh, I need an agent. I need somebody to hold my hand through this whole thing. So needless to say, never went through with it. So that's one thing that I regret. But yeah, I knew that I wanted to write. I went through, I was a journalist, so I was writing everyone else's stories. And so finally I said, you know what, I'm going to finish this book, and then I'm going to finish all the other books that are in my head, and it's going to be that. So yeah. To answer your question, yes.
So I grew up being told that I actually was really bad at writing. I was underdeveloped for my age, and so I was actually put in a special class to get extra support, because I'd be like, dog is red, or like just not accurate and not descriptive, not to my level. And so when I was freshman in high school, I wrote a short story for my final in that class, and my teacher told me that if I turned it into a novel, she'd help me get it published. And I was like, hold on, I thought I sucked. And so that really changed my perspective on everything. And by the time I was a sophomore, my next teacher was really encouraging as well, and he took some of my poetry and entered it into competitions, and one of them got published in a book, and so that was definitely eye-opening, and so I started tinkering with my first novel in high school, and it took me 11 years before I published it and rewrote it a whole bunch of times. And I'm in the process of rewriting it again. But yeah, so it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's always been a passion of mine. I don't think it could have been when I was told that I sucked. But once my teachers kind of opened my eyes to it and I started believing in myself and letting myself grow and explore, I started loving it so much. And now, I mean, if I go too long without writing, I start going a little stir crazy. So yeah.
I hope you send a copy of your book, published book, to every person who ever said you were bad.
Yeah.
Look at me now.
Yeah.
Here you go. With just no, just sign it. You know.
It sounds like the ongoing theme too. Our teachers are amazing.
Yes.
Because they can
Yeah.
see so much in, yeah, they can see so much in people. Yeah, that you may not be able to see in yourself.
Very true.
Yeah.
So, okay, I have a couple, well, I'll start with the first one. So the first question is, like, if you're not blessed to have, like, the, illustrated ability to be able to illustrate your own book or have someone that is really close to you, like, would you recommend trying to find a publisher to be able to connect with an illustrator? Like, what would be that route to go in order to try to do?
I would say yes. So, Journal Joy definitely has illustrators, and what they were able to do for some of my brother's drawings is give it kind of a more defined look because they were hand sketched. So that's why I like our partnership. They've been able to work with us. But someone mentioned Fiverr. Now, interestingly enough, I initially started with Fiverr because my brother was taking too long. And I have to echo, they don't come out as much and you end up spending more money. Part of that big bucket of money I've been pouring out that my brother owes me.
And like what Fiverr is, like, if you're purchasing their service, but then you just own all of whatever that they've made. Like they can't come back later. Like if you get your book published and they're like, hey, do you own the copyrights to this illustration?
You can definitely do an agreement with them.
Okay.
So the person I went to didn't do a bunch of drawings, but I made sure to have an agreement because you don't want that to come back.
Right.
Absolutely.
I was steered away from getting someone to illustrate it because I was working during the time, and they were like, "Hey, it's gonna be $1,500 just to do the illustrations." I was like, "Oh, $1,500, I'm gonna keep in my pocket, right?" But there are a lot of artists that are here in the Camp North End that do illustrations and so on and so forth. So I would try to connect with somebody locally because you'll probably come out cheaper that way. And I was quoted $1,500 from a friend, so I was like, this feels like a sticker. But I do say that there are a lot of resources like right here.
I have another question also. So you mentioned like going through like Barnes and Noble. So since you published to them, are you only able to exclusively sell through them?
No.
Like not through like Amazon, like if you wanted to go through other, you can sell other
Yes.
places.
So you can sell at any other place. They don't have an exclusivity right. The only time that through Amazon, it can get tricky. Like you can and you can't. Just depends on how you end up like self-publishing through them. Because they do have like I forget the name of the
Ebook.
program. Yeah.
Ebook, yeah, it's if you're enrolled in
Yeah.
Kindle Unlimited, your ebook needs to be exclusive with them, but your paperback or your hardback, other formats don't need to be.
Yes, question. I develop it as publicist for my other friends. So I do all the legwork. So I have a really quick question about distribution. Have you had any luck with distribution in libraries, public libraries, or has it been like just hitting against a wall?
When you say distribution, do you mean selling in a library
No,
or
just keeping
getting
the books in the library. Like,
I actually am going to share my connect that is with the Charlotte Mack Library because she was able to get my book in there. I shared it with Candace. I will share it with you all. Yes. She's on LinkedIn. Tell her I sent you to her. She would appreciate
She'll
it.
go get 18 messages tomorrow.
Yeah.
Shanice told me.
But libraries outside of Charlotte, has it been, like, have you been tried, like, how's that?
My hometown of Teaneck, New Jersey has my book, so does Hackensack and Englewood.
Oh.
But that's because of my
Right.
connections back home.
Yeah.
Outside of that, no.
Right.
For me, my book is in the Highlands and the mountains. So what I try to do is, if I do a event at your library, you're gonna have a book. So I make that a part of kind of the agreement of, hey, like, carry the book. The only place, like Shanine has said, she shared her contact, because I have been trying to get my book into Charlotte Mac, but it has been hard. They have a tedious little process that they have, and if you don't know anybody, then of course you're gonna hit like a wall. But most like libraries, I haven't had an issue with. Yeah.
I've also gone to a few libraries near where I live, like Monroe and Indian Land and stuff. And usually they're fine if you just like donate your book. You know, if you don't expect them to like buy it, but just be like, here's my book. If you could, you know, they've been great. Those few libraries. I haven't tried in a huge one like Charlotte Mecklenburg, but the smaller ones have been very nice about it.
So when you donate it, like they rent it out, just like somebody can rent it out?
Yeah, I give it to them and then they put it in their system.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wanted to say?
Yeah, for Charlotte Mecklenburg, they have the Carolina Authors program. And yeah, you would need to donate your book to them, and there's like this form that you fill out and everything, and then they will let you know if, you know, they accepted it or not. But for libraries that are out of state, there's usually like a buyer, so to speak, and I can't remember like the technical term.
Vendors, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, if you know who that person is, you can, you know, tell them that you recommend, you know, this particular book, and this is why. Sometimes they want to know like your marketing process as well. I think I've been fortunate enough to have other people do it for me. So I love book clubs, and they've been my agents pretty much, and so they've contacted like other libraries that are outside of the state. There's some outside the country too, that have, where they've said, hey, we want this book in the library. So I would say make friends with some book clubs, and or there's also some libraries where you can, you know, just try to put in the request yourself. So there's multiple routes that you can take, but yeah, so it's doable.
So I echo doing events at libraries because I've had libraries buy my books. I actually haven't given them for free to any of them because I've been looking up. Gastonia is a great one. Gaston County, they'll buy your book. But I tell my readers to request that their library carry it. So I'll tell them to request the book from their local indie stores and their local libraries. And I'll promote that just as much as saying, you know, it's on Kindle Unlimited or it's on Audible. I try to rotate, you know, whenever I'm posting, I like to direct them somewhere. And so in a lot of my posts, I will say to request it from their library, or when people comment, I want to read this book, but I just can't afford it right now. I get messages like that all the time. I tell them or recommend to them to request it from their library, and that's something that they didn't think about before or didn't know that they could do. I had people go look in the library and they couldn't find it, but they were able to get it in their library after requesting. And so I don't bother trying to get into any of the libraries. I just tell people to request it. That's the easiest way to go, especially if your books are on Ingram Spark. That's how the libraries can order the book and used to be able to have, you know, the barcode and the ISBN and be able to be registered in their systems.